A monster prowled the alleys of Tokyo. It looked completely human, but was not. You could tell there was some kind of mad, animalistic drive behind those eyes. The intensity of the stare, the way the canines were revealed, everything about it suggested a caged animal driven into some kind of blood frenzy, rather than an ordinary-looking 47-year-old businessman in a suit and tie. The tie was a little frayed, and he'd lost his jacket somewhere, but on quick observation those things would be ignored once he got a look at the eyes. The alley felt good to him. It felt right at home here. He'd been enjoying himself in this alley for the last quarter of an hour, enjoying himself in a way he'd never tried before. The man had a home, and he was planning to go back to it soon. Very soon, he thought with a smile, since his wife was there. He'd been secretly wishing her dead for a long time, but tonight he felt like he could actually do it. He could finally rid himself of that nag once and for all. His laughter rose unbidden, a gleefully wicked shout of joy at realizing that after years of a soul-crushing desk job and a bastard of a boss and an arrogant wife and everything that kept him down, he was truly free. Stop right there. Cops? Oh boy. A cop once gave him a parking ticket. He really wanted to sink his teeth into a 16-year-old girl wearing some kind of weird school uniform with a cat. Actually, that would be fun too, but in a different way. Much like 5 minutes ago when he flexed his fingers, feeling strength and control there that he hadn't had in his 40 decades on this earth. This didn't scare her. He couldn't read any sort of emotion off her as she stood in the bizarre uniform, a bright blue and pink trimmed fuku with long gloves and boots that would be more fitting on a professional wrestler than a student. She wasn't even looking directly at him, her eyes a little defocused and seeming to look at everything simultaneously rather than having any intense focus. This sort of mindlessness insulted the monster. He wanted fear, and he would get it no matter what. "You should run home, little girl," he growled, trying to scare a reaction out of her. "Not that you can run faster than I can. I'm free. I'm finally free, and I'm..." "People should feel safe walking the streets of Tokyo, not afraid of people like you waiting in the shadows," the sailor girl pronounced, pointing dramatically. The sudden burst of emotion actually surprised the beast. "They shouldn't have to be afraid of... You're going to... And finally, fear. An awkward, unfocused fear that wasn't satisfying in the slightest. The awkwardness of the moment was so thick that the monster actually paused, waiting to see what was supposed to happen next, her own rampant confusion seeming to affect him. The sailor kept her frozen pose, eyes suddenly quite afraid, not of him, but from some variant of stage fright, like a doctor in the middle of a complex operation forgetting which hemisphere of the brain he was supposed to be cutting into. The cat spoke up for her. "Punish," he prompted quietly, averting his eyes in embarrassment. "I'm going to punch you," the sailor continued, completing the arm gesture at the same time. "Punish! I'm going to punish you, for I am Sailor Salvation, and I will punish you, foul Yamiko demon, in the name of goodness!" The enemy, the monster thought. "I don't know how I know, but I know she is my enemy. I must destroy the sailor who threatens our existence." And he thought, on a personal note, it's just the sort of thing he always wanted to do, but never had the spine to do until tonight. "Well then," he spoke. He kicked a nearby dumpster to shove it aside and reveal his night's handiwork. "I'll be happy to fight you, Sailor Salvation. Then maybe you can join your classmate." Psychological tactics, quite lovely, he thought. Now he could smell a true look of fear in her eyes, The demon rushed at the horrified girl, ready to tear her apart, then returned to his true home in the dark world. Yes, the one he felt pulled towards even now. What he noticed too late was that inside the girl's fear was a deep-rooted core of loathing. The kind of loathing that can work up fear into a fine, rich lather of pure rage. And there's a section skip here. My teacher encourages me to practice my writing in private. I like to make up good metaphors because people relate to them better than just writing out what's really going on. So I could just say, I got mad. But that's really not enough to describe how I felt. I really want to try this. I want to make sure it's painfully clear with the best words I know exactly how I felt and why. I need to say this. See, the line between hindsight, foresight, and the horror of what you're seeing right now has a tendency to blur, like a bad stroboscopic effect. Stroboscopic, that's a good word, even if I don't know exactly what it means. It feels nice and clinical. Clinical is what I'm looking for right now. Clinical, like doctors who look at the virus from afar and frown and make notes and never, ever touch it, never experience the fever directly. Sight. The sight, yes. Clinically, it was a 13-year-old girl wedged behind a dumpster, beaten to death and clearly abused. Just an innocent bystander who the Yamiko had likely grabbed after he turned. Simple enough. This is not the worst thing I've ever seen. Maybe it ranks in the top 5, but not the worst. Most of the top 5 I actually saw on television, but that didn't matter. How bad something is compared to other things doesn't change it being bad. Bad period, very bad. The kind of bad you can't put your mind around because it's too big. So, I reacted. I think I know why I reacted the way I did, too. In that moment, when I first saw what the Yamiko had done, I had a single-sentence thought. This shouldn't be happening. No normal person should have to experience this, should have to be caught up between these two shadow forces and their ridiculous dance. This girl, minutes ago, was likely heading home after visiting a friend's house, or was running an errand late at night. Regardless, she was alive and well and normal and living out a normal life, before she stepped into a hole in life's road and landed in the clutches of a Yamiko. Every ordinary plain thing about her life ended right there. And shortly after that, her life itself, during the kind of screaming horror that just should not have existed in this girl's life. Nobody should have to be exposed to that. But the Yamiko do expose you, and the exposure kills or cripples. The lucky ones forget all about it and return to normality. She didn't get that chance. She should have. A big thought for what should be a single sentence. But since I've experienced that kind of abnormal life for the last 5 years, I didn't have to explore it real deeply to recognize it. I just had to think, this shouldn't be happening. In that split second, I snapped. It felt unpleasantly like something snapping across my back, like a birch rod or a whip, a harsh, cracking sting, yet darkly silent. I boiled inside as I saw the sight, the Yamiko and the girl. Everything I had submerged in my nightly dose of television rushed to the surface and got the bends. My anima was raped by my animus until one screamed out in emotional pain and the other in sadistic anger, and I couldn't tell which was doing what. Then the entire wad of balled-up fury and pain focused itself on the Yamiko, and I lost track of everything that happened next. Sorry. Though, given the amount of blood I was kneeling in, that didn't belong to me. When I finally slotted back into regular time, I think I won. There's another section break. A pair of furry ears peeked out from behind a garbage can. They were followed by more of the cat's head, but only enough to get a good look at the scene. Normally, Cats don't have the kind of emotional reaction that would make them nauseatingly sick at a scene. This was a special cat, however, and he was going to hawk up a hairball if he looked any more at what was left of the Yamiko. Instead, he sucked it up and concentrated on his charge. The young sailor-suited warrior who was kneeling in a thick puddle what was previously inside the demon. "Himie?" he asked quietly, ready to run for cover if she jumped him in her frenzied state. "You okay?" "I think I won," the girl said quietly. "Can we go home now?" Thank goodness, the cat thought as he padded out from behind the can. She's safe. Probably not well, but safe to be around is a good base to build on. "This is going to be hard to hide," he spoke. "I don't think he's going to be happy about this. Why didn't you use your purifying shining light attack? The Yamiko would have been vaporized." "I think I forgot," the sailor said in a dead monotone, rising to her feet and straightening out her ruined skirt. "I forgot to use my attack. I'm sorry, but it doesn't really matter, does it? I won, so I'm done. Can we go home now, Dusty? I'm so tired." "Sailor salvation!" Damn, Dusty the cat thought. Just what she doesn't need, another chewing out. He jumped across the puddle, wanting to be by her side rather than by his side. Even if the guy was his boss, he didn't have to like him. He especially didn't have to like that annoying clack of his cane on the pavement. Always a good sign of his coming, even if he didn't announce his presence. He, in this case, being a tall boy in an exquisitely tailored white and gold tuxedo with cape and top hat. Evening wear would be appropriate for the evening, but a white mask was not unless you were heading to a costume ball. He whisked along to the mouth of the alley. He wouldn't dare walk inside the stinking mess with his clean clothes, not after what just transpired. Content to frown on it from 15 feet away, he spoke up in a commanding voice. 5 times, he spoke. 5 times you have done this, Sailor Salvation. What is the problem? Have you forgotten your training? The darkness is to be purged by the light. That is how we protect the world from their taint. All you have done is cause a mess for the world to... It was already going to be a mess, the girl spoke, a bit of slow venom creeping into a monotone. She pointed to the girl's body, without looking at it again. Never again. He left the mess. His host is gone, likely dead. The police will end up investigating this tomorrow, link the death to the host after testing the blood, and suddenly an ordinary guy who's done nothing wrong in his life pops up as tomorrow's top story as a vicious child killer. Tell me how we've defended goodness and righteousness tonight. But what does it matter? I defeated the monster, Magnificent Common. That's all you want me to do. I want you to defeat the evil, not this unpleasantness, the named Magnificent Common spoke, wrinkling his nose. It's not becoming of the noble sailor-suited Senshi to act like the very monster she seeks to defeat. 5 times you have acted this way, lost control, gone wild, let your powers go unchecked. You're getting more and more unstable by the day, Sailor Salvation. Unreliable, dangerous. Don't you think I know that? She asked, the venom replaced with ice. I lost it. I can't hold on to it easily anymore. Maybe if you were in the trenches fighting every day like I am, instead of watching from afar, you'd understand exactly how awful it can be. This shouldn't be happening to me. Dusty's fur started to rise. Maybe the common never showed true emotion beyond grace and calm, but the cat could sense a rising anger inside him. Himie, he warned quietly. Silence, animal, the common ordered, pointing to the cat with his cane. Dusty skittered behind his owner's legs, hiding. Your complaining has been increasing these days, Sailor Salvation. You should be thankful for being able to save the world from the forces of Yamigaya. The selflessness of your fight allows everybody you know, everybody you've ever cared about, to go on in peace without having to know of. Tell that to her. She spoke again. She's dead. Whatever peace she's got right now is not the kind she would have wanted. Don't you get it? I'm not doing anything. Nothing's changing, and I'm not winning this war. I hate it. I hate everything about being Sailor Salvation. I hate you and the powers you gave me 5 years ago, and I hate my stupid uniform, and I hate my purifying shining light, and I hate living this way, and... The hand of the common blurred slightly as he whisked it across the air. Her voice was silenced. She didn't resist this. When the common exerted his will, it was futile to stop him. I see this is not going to work, he said, with some tiny note of disappointment. Never before have I had a sailor who has despised the Fuku as much as you do. Your fits of depression and rage are not becoming of the sailor. I'm afraid I have to terminate our relationship immediately. Himie's eyes widened in shock. Go home, the common ordered, turning his back on the now former Sailor Salvation. He whisked his hand again, restoring her voice. I don't wish to see you again. You disgust me, and are unworthy of the power you hold. Begone. The sound of his cane on the dry pavement echoed through the alley as the common walked off. Eventually, the sound ceased. Magnificent Common technically only walked for appearance and flair. How he traveled when nobody was looking was far more efficient. Dusty hissed at the air he occupied, a pathetic but satisfying gesture of defiance. He walked around in front of Hime to try and check on her emotional state. Given the years they had spent together, he was pretty good at this task. But tonight, she was almost unreadable. Shock, yes, but beyond that he couldn't tell. Was she angry? Was she going to cry? This was the only life she had known, or rather, the only life she'd remembered. It was impossible, of course. Dusty got a certain amount of knowledge about the sailors and Yamigaya and all that on the day Magnificent Common made him a sentient animal guardian. Nothing he knew of the legends and myths spoke of someone being, well, fired. And here it had happened. Himie? He tested. I disgust him, she repeated. I'm disgusting and unworthy. I'm unworthy of the Fuku. Maybe you should sleep on it, Dusty quickly suggested. You know, you always feel better after a good night's sleep. Well, maybe not better, but it never feels as big or important when you wake up. You told me that, remember? Sleep is exactly what you need to... Laughter. A weird, nasty sort of laugh that upshifted to a happy laugh after a few moments. Dusty's tail twitched as he tried to make out what was so funny. Himie Shotan, no longer Sailor Salvation despite continuing to wear the Fuku, wiped some tears from her eyes and smiled as she crouched down to pet her cat. I'm disgusting and unworthy, she repeated yet again. Isn't that wonderful? I'm finally unworthy. It's over, Dusty. I don't have to live this life anymore. I'm not dreaming, right? I'm not seeing things and hearing things. I don't think you're dreaming, Dusty replied, a little puzzled. Good, she said, rising. She closed her eyes, grasping the white heart-shaped pendant around her neck, and the Fuku faded, returning her to her pajamas. She pulled the small ivory pendant out from her fuzzy wool top and yanked the string off her head. Then I'm never going to have to use this again. Now we can go home. Tomorrow, I get to be normal. What about, them? Dusty asked, flicking his tail at the 1.78 bodies. It doesn't matter, she spoke, voice returning to a flat tone as she tried not to think about it. Let the police try to figure it out. It's not my concern anymore. I'm free. Let's go home.